The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to Sandhill's presentation on using data intelligence for data migration. Strategies and best practices. You're listening to Robert Lutton, Vice President of Sales and Marketing, and joining me today is the awesome Jeff Giles, Solution Architect from Sandhill Consultants. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Robert.
So Jeff, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll tell our audience a little bit about Sandhill.
Sure thing. All right, hang on one sec here. Well, I adjust. There we go.
There we go. Thanks, Jeff. A little message from our sponsors at Sandhill Consultants. We deliver tools for data governance and data modeling. With over 30 years of industry experience and certifications in DCAM and DIMBOK, we also provide content-driven frameworks for both data modeling and data governance tools. With our small but highly skilled team, we provide DCAM assessments as well as DIMBOK training. We offer training and mentoring around the erwin and DM and erwin DI products, and we look forward to partnering with you to unlock the full potential of your data and fuel your digital transformation. So Jeff, let's go ahead and look at the agenda today, and I'll hand it over to you.
All righty, thanks, Robert. So today we're going to just give a brief overview introduction about data migration and the management of data migration. We'll also talk about some of the best practices, the key steps you might want to start for doing data migration, a little bit about the data migration practice, the importance of quality in data migration, a little bit about testing, and at the end we'll give you just an example solution of how you might want to approach this data migration task, and then we'll open it up for general questions and answers. So we should start with the obvious question: what is data migration? So according to the DMBOK, it's basically transferring data between storage types, formats, or systems, which might sound simplistic. However, it's not a very simplistic process. You have certain considerations to take a look at. You can automate it, but you do have to have some oversight to ensure that it is accurate. It will support the system upgrades, maintenance, cloud and offline storage. Granularity impacts speed. So how often you migrate data, whether you do it in batch or do it near real time, it's going to affect performance, and it often involves data remediation. It's never a clean process where you just take information from one place and put it in another place without having to do any changes to it. So some of the use cases that you run into are moving data off overused or aging storage, enhancing performance with faster storage, doing the information lifecycle policies where we at some point have to purge and archive data, move it to different locations. So why does all this stuff matter with data migration? And essentially, it works well for business agility. So the more up-to-date you are, the more efficient you're going to be. And obviously, improving performance is a big deal. So newer systems are typically faster. So we want to move to faster systems, which in turn affects cost. So if we move to more modern structures or more modern storage or cloud-based, we can save money. And of course, technology is always changing and getting better. So as technology evolves, older systems become obsolete, as I mentioned before. But of course, these benefits do have their challenges. So you have to be aware of some of these issues. So in this session, we're just going to cover some of the practical steps that you can take to support this data migration process. But before we get into that, there are different types of data migration. So you can do data migration from let's say, on-prem solution to cloud. You can do database to database, certain archival storage, replication, disaster recovery, these kinds of things. They're all different kinds of migration or types of migration. But for us today in this session, we're going to be focusing exclusively on the data part, the actual movement of data. You may have different types of migrations in your organization, but we're just going to talk about the data component of migration. So some of the concerns to take a look at, there's both technical and business. So from the technical perspective, data compatibility and changes, semantic meaning. So in one case, you might have a customer which has a certain contextual meaning from, let's say, perspective of sales, but if it gets intermingled with data about customers that from a financial perspective, they might not have the same semantic meaning. So we have to think about that. Data integrity and accuracy, of course, that goes without saying. We don't want corrupted or altered data to go into our migration. Poor data quality is a huge one. We want to make sure that we have good quality data. We don't want to lose data. We don't have it corrupted or degraded. Then, of course, there's the system downtime. So even though you have to migrate data, business still has to work. So we can't simply say to the business, wait till we're done, and then we'll bring the system back up. That might not be possible. So getting into the business side of it, what is the impact on the business operations continuity type thing? How much cost is involved in this? And what's the return on investment? Are we just migrating to migrate? Or are we going to receive some sort of benefit for doing the migration? Hopefully there is. And then there's the stakeholder expectations. What do the stakeholders expect to get on their return for this investment in data migration? So data migration can be complex and challenging, but following a best practices guide and key steps can help ensure that the process goes smoothly. So let's take a look at what those processes might involve. Now here, we're not really trying to dictate what you should do. This is just an example of different approaches to doing data migration. But there's essentially 6 different processes. So there's adopting a strategic governance model. So this is where you're going to set the rules and responsibilities so everything goes smoothly. Discover and curate asset inventory. So we have to know what we're working with. Document all that data that's going to be moved. And then assess the metadata compatibility during the transformation. So there are things like data formats, labels, structures. All of these things have to be assessed in doing the moving of data from one place to another. And of course, overall data quality health. That's really an important one because we're going to have to clean this data, fix any errors, remove duplicates, do some kind of profiling here. And then select the migration strategy. How are we going to do it? Are we going to do it full transfer all at once? Are we going to phase it in over time? Or is it going to be sort of a real-time synchronization? You have to decide how you're going to do that. And then lastly, we have to validate things. So we're going to run some tests to make sure everything is migrated over correctly. There's no issues. It's functionally equivalent to what we had and that it's ready for use in the new system. So first thing we'll do is we'll jump into the first topic here is the governance model. So there are lots of different frameworks for data governance. But in this case, what we're talking about is ensuring that the data migration follows some clear rules to minimize risks and obviously aligns with what the business wants. Because if the business isn't happy, then there's really no reason to do this migration. So we have to set the roles and responsibilities of who's going to oversee the migration from the stakeholders' perspective as well as IT's perspective. Establish the policies and standards. So if we're going to be talking about data quality, we need to know what is quality. And that, of course, comes by some policies and standards that says these are the values that we expect to see. And then ensure regulatory compliance. We've all heard about GDPR, HIPAA, FERPA, and all of the other regulations to protect sensitive information. Risk management and oversight. So what are the potential risks for this? Data loss, downtime, put those safeguards in place, make sure we minimize the risks. And then obviously monitoring it over time after we do it to make sure that the data stays in sync and is in good quality. So adopting a good data governance model ensures that data remains accurate and secure and usable throughout the entire migration process. Would you agree, Robert?
Yeah, Jeff, this comes back to the key point that I noted at the beginning, that there are several strong frameworks out there, such as DCAM, DIMBOK, even Quest has its own 7 steps to data maturity. A lot of these frameworks all talk about what you've got to do. And Sandhill has actually developed a content-driven knowledge base called Compass, which actually tells you how to actually implement exactly what you're doing there, from the roles, the strategies, the business case, and the definitions that you're looking to set within the organization. So for anyone reviewing this, if they are interested, you can go to Sandhill Consultants website and look up our Compass product. But Jeff, I just did want to allude to the fact that there are very strong frameworks out there that one can look at.
Yeah, there's lots of different frameworks, and we'll at the end handle some questions and answers if you have any, and there's also contact information at the end should you want to follow up. So speaking about governance, and we know that within governance we have to have roles, we have to have compliance, policies, all of these kinds of things. So from the perspective of Erwin Quest, we've got some tools that will help with this governance process. We've got the Erwin Data Intelligence product as well as Erwin Data Modeling. And these products will help you document what your policies are and how your policies might relate to, let's say, business glossary terms, and how those terms might relate back to, let's say, transactional information that you've captured. And it's available as a cloud, or it's also available on-prem as well. So from the governance perspective, these products will help you with that component of things. Now we move on to discovering and curating the asset inventories, which is basically what have we got out there, and in what shape is it in, what quality is it in. So looking at this, part of what the data intelligence product brings to you is the ability to discover lots of different metadata, and that metadata can be contained in lots of different places. Obviously, databases are one place, but a lot of metadata is contained in data modeling tools. There's also other metadata that might just be contained in flat files, or it might be contained in some specific system that you, let's say, might be older, like mainframes, things like that. So the unique thing about this is that there are connectors which can be created that will actually talk to different APIs. So if there's a system out there and there's no, let's say, ODBC driver or something like that for it, chances are pretty good that one could be developed from Quest to actually go against different systems. And of course, once we've discovered this, we can catalog it, right? So then we can see, where did it come from? What kind of metadata is in there? This would include all kinds of details like data types, definitions, and all the other information that we need to discover about the information, so we can assess its quality as well as its full inventory. So you could think about this as kind of like a metadata management approach, but also the use of AI to accelerate the creation and discovery of metadata as well also exists. And that would include things like code sets and code set maps, reference tables, business rules, transformations, because you're going to need to know all of this stuff if you're going to migrate information from one location to another location. So the use of AI in the data intelligence product does help speed up or accelerate the discovery and curation process. Now, one of the things that you also have to understand is, what is the structure of data? And that's where your data models come in, right? So we're going to need to know, if data is stored in a database, what does the table structure look like? Or from a data architecture perspective, what is the logical representation of this data? What is the conceptual representation of this data? And then in a data model, you can see the relationship between one piece of or one table to another table, the definitions of these things. So there's a tremendous amount of metadata that can be captured through what we call a reverse engineering process of existing data structures. You can also look at multiple data structures and then do a comparison. So in the Erwin data modeling product, we can see the source and the target and what the differences are between the source and target, which is going to be very helpful to us when we do the migration, because this helps us figure out what kind of transformation logic we might need to have in order to make sure that everything works appropriately. And this would include code sets and reference data, which is huge. We always need code sets and reference data to help us classify things, create a consistency across the different systems. It also ensures a certain amount of data integrity so that we don't have mismatched data, which in turn improves your data quality. And of course, data governance has a big oversight job for this one as well, to make sure that if you're using ISO standard codes or other codes, that they are compliant with all the different systems. So those are all things that you can actually track with the Erwin data intelligence product. And of course, sources and target environments, because the data intelligence product will give us the catalog of information we have, data types, lengths, precisions, etc. We can compare and contrast it against what we think we understand and see what the deltas are and make sure we know how much time, how much money, how much effort do we think it's going to take us to actually do this data migration. And then, of course, how do we handle the divergent information, right? So when things aren't actually matching, how do we modify that or make that work? What are the business transformation rules going to be? Reference data, lookups, code sets, code mappings, how are all of those things going to be put together? So we have to assess that. And then we also have to know, what are we not assessing? Like, what is not mapping? So within the data intelligence suite, we have the ability to actually look at what sources we have actually mapped across different systems, as well as those that we're not mapping. So then we can look at this and decide, well, should we map this? Is this important enough to be mapped over or not? So some assessments about that kind of information. And of course, lineage is a huge big deal, because we want to know, where did the information come from? How does it change or move or transform as it moves through different systems or some ETL processes? This is also useful to understand, because this will help us know what systems are actually participating in, let's say, the migration of information to data warehouses or things like that, that we want to have a good idea and pinpoint where data quality issues might actually start. So speaking of data quality, there are 6 what I would call dimensions of quality here, and this is really comes out of the DEMA DMBOK, which is, things we want to look at the data for. How complete is it? How accurate? How consistent? How valid? How unique? Integrity. There's some other dimensions as well, but these are the big ones that people usually look at. So these are the things that we need to run a quality check on. Now we need to do it before we do the migration, so that we make sure that we have the cleanest, best data possible before we start the data migration process. And so this is where you're going to need to do some things like data profiling, get some statistics about the data. And so where the Erwin data intelligence product can help you out is it has built-in data quality functionality. So it can do a profile of the system you're looking at, give you scores of the data quality. And of course, this data quality score can be assessed by you, because as we know, data quality is really more about fit for purpose than anything else. So you can decide what sensitivity levels you need for your for your data to comply to get your table score, as well as health alerts and drift, because as we know, data, just like anything else over time, begins to deteriorate if nobody's watching it. So there are alerts to see, to let you know if the data is drifting in a certain direction or not. And you can get an overall health score. So here you can see this little radar chart, and you've got your 6 areas or dimensions of quality, and then where you score in each one of those quality dimensions. And these are, of course, configurable and modifiable by you, but essentially you can look at this score and determine how much accuracy do we need in order to do that migration. Maybe we don't need 100%, but 80% might be what we need. You also have to standardize the data so it's in consistent formats when we move it over there, remove all the duplicates, validate, whether it's valid based on, let's say, code sets or various other rules that you have around your data. So the outcome of this is basically, is your data clean? Is it ready for migration? Does it ensure that the target environment is going to get the best, highest quality data? Now, for migration strategy, well, that's up to you. So you have different, like I said at the beginning, different ways that you might want to approach this. You could say, we're going to do a big shift and we're going to do it all at once, like a big bang approach. Or we're going to do it incrementally over time. Maybe we're going to, do certain batch jobs over time and do it that way. Or maybe we need some sort of real time and we're going to just do a live synchronization from one system to another system. Lots of different ways to do it, but of course you prioritize your migration of your critical data first, and that ensures that the important information is moved, and if there's other data, then maybe that comes later. And the different use cases here are, as we've been discussing, migrating, partitioning a certain database and just moving sort of that, cascading, reporting, high availability, history, load balancing, decentralization. These are all different ways to structure and architect your data environment. So the last thing we need to do is, of course, validate that the information that we moved over is at least equal to, but you would hope better than the system it came from. So there's different ways to look at this, but what you're really looking at is to get your testers involved early. This is what is called a shift left testing policy. Continuously test. You could even automate your tests as well, and then ensure that you've got accurate, complete, functional data, that performance is as good, if not better, than the system it was in, and make sure that the security and user access controls are in place for the new system that you move the information to. So we've been talking a lot about the Erwin data intelligence and the data modeling, which has the built-in data quality and the catalog and the data literacy, which is equivalent to like a glossary. But then there's the actual hard, heavy part of moving the data, shifting it over, and that's what the SharePlex product does. It does the actual moving of data from one location to another, has certain functionalities to ensure availability, scalability, integrate different applications together, populate a data lake or a data warehouse, or really some kind of modern analytic application. So lots of different places that you can move data to during a migration process, and SharePlex is the mechanism for that movement. Now, a possible solution using these products would look a little bit like this. You've got to plan what you're going to do. So the data intelligence product would help us understand the governance part, help us understand what we have in the curation process. The data modeler is going to take a look at all the different metadata that's contained in all those data structures, so we understand what they look like. And of course, a first pass at data quality to make sure that we've got no duplicates, we have reasonably high quality, and then SharePlex is the mechanism by which we would move it to the target system. So that takes us to the migration part, where you want to test the migration before you actually do it. So SharePlex has mechanisms in that for doing the test. Also will help you with the compare and repair of data migration and make sure you have high availability for the people that want to use the system. And then, of course, after we do the migration, we want to make sure that everything went according to plan. So then you can use data intelligence again to validate that the data migrated is of good quality, and then the ongoing data governance practices that I mentioned before to make sure it does not start drifting. And then data quality, check the quality, make sure it's good, monitor it, SharePlex. You can turn on and off migration. So if you just want to do batches at some interval, you can turn it on, or you could have it ongoing for that. We'll call it near real-time synchronization across different data sources. So that takes us to the question and answer period. And I will bring Robert back in here to see if there's anything that we might need to address.
Yeah, Jeff, there was just a couple of questions that came in while you were talking about the data intelligence solution. So the first question is, from your point of view, how would the data intelligence product help in discovering and curating asset inventories during the migration process?
Well, if your data migration is, let's say, an ongoing migration, that is, you're not doing the lift and shift, big, heavy, one-time movement, where the data intelligence product comes in is that when you start introducing new data sources, then the data intelligence product can connect to those sources, interrogate them for metadata that you might want to bring in and catalog. So if you have an ongoing migration process that doesn't really stop, then it's useful for that.
Great, thank you. And the second one that came in was, you talked about the data drift. I wonder if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah. So what happens over time is that you set up your, let's say, data quality rules, and you have certain allowable, let's say, data values, definitions, etc. But over time, things change. That is, your business rules might change, a regulation changes, your goals, your organizational goals change. Change is a constant. So when change happens, you always have to make sure that the data you're collecting is still in alignment with whatever your goals or objectives are of the business. So lots of things can change out there, and they're external. You don't always control them. So making sure that you understand or update your data definitions, update your data quality rules, and then DI will tell you if the data is moving, becoming, let's say, of less quality or less consistency than when you first did the rules. Because when you first do them, everything's good.
Excellent. That's all the questions at the moment, Jeff. If you go to next slide, we can go into wrap up and see if we can finish in on the half hour here. So
Sure.
just to recap, as we started at the beginning, Santel Consultants, we provide businesses with world-class data management, data governance, data modeling solutions. We mentioned that we've got over 30 years of industry experience, as well as certifications in DCAM and DIMBOK, and we have developed and created proven frameworks that enhance data maturity and data quality. As a trusted partner with a lean yet skilled team, we're dedicated to our customer success. And we certainly hope to partner with you to unlock your future potential of your data and fuel your digital transformation. I will say that for more information, customers can visit our website at www.santelconsultants.com. And thank you, Jeff. This is our contact information here. If you want to have a look at that, we'll leave it up. We'd be more than interested to hear from you at any time. You can reach out to our North American office or our UK office. You can visit our website for useful hints and tips and tricks and techniques. And you can follow us on our social media platforms as well as our YouTube platforms. With that, Jeff, thank you very much indeed for giving us a quick update on the data migration. I will say to our audience, stay tuned. We have got lots of great content coming in 2025 regarding about how you can mature your data management environment with the tools, processes, and technologies that we have at our disposal. So thank you indeed for tuning in, and we will send the recording out in the next day or so. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.